So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Ms. Caitlin Lim and Ms. Aleksandra Ambroziak.
Hi.
Caitlin,
Um,
go first.
I know, I was just going to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Caitlin.
And hi, I'm Alex, and we're both really happy to be here today. I'm going to start screen sharing quick. Are you all seeing my... There we go. Presentation should be up and running. We're all good?
Yes, we're all good.
Caitlin, anything else we should probably mention before we kick off, or?
I just wanted to mention, you can see in the chat, I sent a demo course as well as a short reading for you all. Feel free to click into that at any point during this meeting or after.
All right, so title of our presentation today is Data-Informed Teaching with the Open Learning Initiative. And once again, I'm Alex, and that's Caitlin, and we're both learning engineers at Carnegie Mellon University. So I figured I'd start off with the history of OLI, or more broadly, like what open learning really is. I'm sure it's probably a phrase you've heard once or twice before. You've probably heard a lot if you're in the network or have attended LearnLab. But the general idea of open learning is innovations in learning that supplement or provide alternatives to traditional modalities and institutions of teaching, right? So the goal of any part of the open learning movement, which was really founded up in the 70s and further on, is to broaden access to quality learning opportunities outside of the traditional educational institutions, right? This can happen within traditional educational institutions such as universities and schools, but in reality, like all it really is it's either supplementing in addition to, outside of perhaps traditional classroom learning. So that can be a technology, a pedagogy, a methodology, a tool, tons of things over there. So you can think of open learning as having roots in the works of Maria Montessori and others. So a lot of you have probably heard about like Montessori teaching, where she worked with working class Italian children to try to get them a better foundation for learning that they did not have access to at the time. And then there's plenty of other historical figures who've obviously worked in this field, just trying to get more children and even more adults access to quality education. Here are the Open Learning Initiative at the CMU Simon Initiative. We're marrying the use of technology, open learning science, and data to empower instructors in and out of the classroom. And as we go forth, you'll see the many uses we have and how exactly we do that. But our roots are here. One of the stories I heard from someone who was here far longer than I have been is that initially our funders, some 20 years ago now, asked us to mimic MIT's open courseware. And at the time, all MIT was doing was filming professor lectures and putting them out there, which is a perfectly wonderful resource. I know there's plenty of folks who are taking like the Harvard coding class that's very popular online, but we wanted to do something a little bit different. And we wanted to take the practices that learning science has given us and distill them into a courseware that would actually not just give students lectures, but we wanted to prove that it could be done. It could be done just as well as a traditional modality and perhaps even better. So that's where born, I believe in 2023, because last year we celebrated 20 years. So 21 years old. Foundationally, it would definitely, we want to mention Herb Simon. That's how we get our name, the Simon Initiative and Open Simon. We talk about that OLI is a part of Open Simon. It's basically a toolkit provided by Carnegie Mellon that includes open source software built at CMU and affiliated institutions such as OLI, whether that be the traditional platform known as Echo or Legacy, and now Taurus, Data Shop, LearnSphere, and a bunch of other tools that are available for educators to use. Herb Simon was a prominent researcher and teacher in both psychology and the computer sciences, which get married into what we're calling the learning sciences at OLI. So his research had groundbreaking implications for early AI technology, and that had to do with decision-making research, verbal learning, organization theory, taking all of those things from the human brain and bringing them into computer science and human-computer interaction. And from that, we formed the bedrock of learning science. And we use things like behavioral psychology, cognitive psychology, and all of those sub-studies in between, along with technology and human-computer interaction to analyze learning data for better student outcomes. So now that we have all that, this is the paper that Caitlin has linked in the chat. This is what we'll be discussing. And title of the paper is Cold Rolled Steel and Knowledge. So that draws us back to our roots with Andrew Carnegie, steel mogul who invested a lot in the Pittsburgh area so that his workers' children could go to school in the area as they were working there. So when we talk about productivity, when you go through and read this paper, this paper came out in 2011. I think we in the 2024s are thinking about productivity as just churning out things all the time, right? So when we hear that word, we might be thinking, well, how much do we want students to just keep churning out work? The way that productivity is referred to in this paper is not about producing more or doing more. It's about getting better, more efficient outcomes, perhaps even with less student time. So instead of giving students more and more and more, how can we maximize the time they're already spending, which is a lot of time, in getting the most of learning out of them? So in this paper, the basis of it is that Candace Till, who is the founder of OLI, and Joel Smith, who wrote this paper together, they analyzed the way that production and manufacturing look at each small step in the production process and how they evaluated and analyze what's going on in order to produce better outcomes. And they make the case that we can do the same for learning. We can do the same for learning because we have similar tools and we've developed similar tools, primarily known as instrumentation. And for those who are not part of Learn Lab, I will go through this very small, but we go into this in depth during our LE training programs or part of the OLI Learn Lab. We have this concept known as instrumentation, which is the process of measuring something abstract with developed physical instruments, right? So the best example I like to give is a thermometer, right? It has mercury in it. It goes up and down based on our body's temperature. And from there on, when we read the numbers on it, we can use our knowledge to semantically give it meaning, right? So the number 101 doesn't mean anything out of context, but knowing what we know about medicine, we've ascribed that that's a fever, right? If it's 101 degrees Fahrenheit. So we can do similar things to learning when we develop instruments. We design our courses to collect data that way, and then we can do the same thing as manufacturing plants, right? We can see the processes that the students are undergoing while they're learning and do some fine-tuning in that process. So that paper is linked in chat if you would like to get a read for it. There's a version of it in Google Drive, so feel free to download and read it. It's a great paper. The two foundational aspects of how OLI chooses to build courses for this process are going to be learning objectives and our formative assessments. So I'm sure everyone here as an educator has heard of a learning objective before. You probably write them all the time, and they're actually pretty implicit, right? So we have our learning goals, which are what we want to teach the students, what we want them to take away from our courses. And from that, we form objectives, right? The reason we emphasize them so much at OLI is because in the technology, we actually tag them to pages and individual activities. You might be used to seeing learning objectives for whole units, whole modules, maybe even on top of pages, but for individual activities, we'll get to that in a second. It's really important to understanding that data. So our learning objective design is based on our learning goals, and all of our learning objectives are measurable, student-centered, and calibrated or aligned. What does that mean? I'll actually start backwards. Calibrated means it's basically representing the things you want to teach the students and the material you give them, right? So if your learning goal is that the students should walk away with an understanding of the solar system, you're going to want to create learning objectives such as name the planets in the solar system, order the planets in the solar system, right? And when you give them material, you're going to give them material that then helps them perform that action. Student-centered means that the learning objective is phrased in a way that talks about student performance, right? You'll notice there's a verb at the beginning of each objective, and I like to think of it as if you walked up to a student and said the learning objective out loud, it basically asks to perform an action, right? So if I came up to a student and I said, name the planets of the solar system, If the student can perform that action, then they understand the material, they probably had some learning or they know the knowledge. If they can't, that means that that's some stuff we have to have them learn or build a course around. So when you write a learning objective, you want it to be a action that the student can perform to demonstrate that they've learned the goal. And of course, lastly, measurable, it goes along with student-centered. You want to be able to measure their progress by having them perform an action, right? So that's why we have some verbs like understand that we don't really use, because understanding, encompasses other ways of demonstrating the action. If they're understanding, that probably means they're able to define, describe, compare, contrast, analyze, right? So there are better verbs to use. So that is a very distilled version of our entire learning objective lecture, but that's what you want. And the reason you want that is because then we're going to go build those instruments that actually measure our student learning, right? So we call them assessments. Sometimes we call them activities. You might see them in tons of places: homework, quizzes, exit tickets. And we have two types in the OLI system, but today we're talking about formative. So formative assessments are practice questions. They basically exist to give students a learn by doing approach to interacting with questions. You might also be used to summative assessments, which we do have. Those are graded. They're usually end of module tests, quizzes, essays, the GRE, the ACT, whatever it might be, right? Just the summation of knowledge to be tested. But we have something at the in the learning sciences known as the active learning principle, and it's that students learn better when they are engaging with the content by answering questions and getting immediate feedback. So they're engaging problem-solving mechanisms in their brain to work with the information they're learning, as opposed to simply learning the information in a vacuum, right? So they will probably, in a traditional course, they will read some text, they will watch videos, or they will view diagrams, and then they will be asked these practice questions that allow them to immediately engage with that content. At OLI, we believe that formative assessments are not graded. This gives them a low stakes practice. They can take these questions over and over and over again. And that's what helps cement the learning. Of course, I know that some folks grade homework. Homework is a great formative assessment, right? Because it engages in practice. But currently at OLI, we just do it stakes-free, right? Summative assessments tend to get graded. Lastly, we have this tool and it allows us to collect data about student performance, right? So as students are doing these practice questions, the way we've built it is so that you, the instructor, can then go in and see, well, what are my students actually working through when they're doing these questions? What concepts are they practicing? How well are they engaging with that information? And how does that learning look overall? Caitlin will talk a little bit more about that when she shows off the learning dashboard later on, and we'll see the actual visuals of that. But for this purpose, OLI formative assessments serve the two purposes, which is to help the student and then to help you, the instructor. So this is a small example of how the elements all come together. So we're going to have a student. I'm going to call her Nancy. And Nancy can perform an action, which is to do an activity. In this case, let's say our activity is multiple choice. You're going to have to explain. Sorry, a bunch of cars just ran by and totally I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so Nancy's performing an action, and that action is that she's answering A on a multiple choice question. If we don't know what the question's about, but we know the correct answer is A, and Nancy chose A, that doesn't really tell us if Nancy learned anything or knew anything about the content. It just tells us that Nancy knew that the correct answer was A. So obviously we'll know when we read the question what the question is about or what the question is asking. When we tag a learning objective to a question, the learning objective is kind of like the subtext. It's what the question is really asking about. So I'm going to go back to our solar system example, and let's say the question is, which of these planets is the fourth in the alignment away from the sun, right? And answer A is Mars, B is Earth, C is Venus, D is Jupiter. Right? What is the question really asking? It could be tied to our learning objectives, such as order the planets in correct order, name the planets of the solar system, right? Whatever that means. when Nancy answers the question, we are being told about her knowledge in relation to the goal we want her to perform, right? So let's say Nancy answered A. That gives us data about what she's actually trying to learn. So linking activities and learning objectives is what tells us whether Nancy is learning or not. So once we have all of that context, we can see that when she answers the MCQ, it proves that she knows something. And that's how we get information about learning. All right, I'm going to pause there real quick. Does anyone have any questions? I know it's a quick run through. I know it's a lot of distilled information at once. It's kind of the crux of Learn Lab. So any questions? I can't see hands raised, but if not, that's okay. Looks like we're all good. Okay, so I'm going to pass it on. Then let's talk about the data. So now we know that formative assessments are a great way for students to practice, but how can you use that data, or what kind of questions can you ask as you have that data when it comes to your course? There's no need to be a data scientist when it comes to having the OLI data. Oh yeah, go ahead, Caitlin. There's no need to be a data scientist. A lot of the OLI tools make it really digestible for instructors to be able to do this. Sorry, I just gave you permission, Caitlin, to grab my screen. So OLI is designed to make this data digestible for educators. And we have tools to do that as well. And Caitlin will touch upon them later. So when it comes to this, what content in the course is working? What is too easy? Oh, what just happened? Caitlin, we're on screen share. Oh. Okay, hold on. Okay, so we want to talk about what content in the course is working. Is some of the content too easy? Is it too difficult? If the content is too easy, can I spend less time on it with my students? Do students already have this knowledge from other places, right? If the content is too difficult, where can I make improvements? Where do students need more help? Where can I provide these, where can I provide more knowledge or scaffolding, right? So you have different audiences, as you're probably aware, every time you teach a course, right? So sometimes you might find that students might know a whole bunch of information, and you can spend more time giving them more effective learning in new, more challenging areas. Or you could get a cohort of students who might be missing some foundational information simply because they haven't encountered it before. So now you know, oh, well, maybe I need to put in some extra content about this foundational topic before we move on. And so knowing all of that, you get a better control of your classroom, you get a better experience for your students, and you actually get to know one-on-one, because we have individual student dashboards as well. You know, do I have a student who might need particular extra help here? And what this really does, I think also, from a student instructor attitude, it makes the student feel less like, well, I can't learn it because I just can't understand it, right? It's, oh, I don't have the foundational knowledge to approach this concept. Can I step back a little, catch up, and then meet up with the rest of my students? And that's a really powerful thing. So yeah, the data helps make the learning experience better for both students and educators by constantly making data-informed improvements. Before I pass it on to Caitlin for her talking about teaching with OLI and the data, does anyone have any questions? I see chat. Give me 1 second. If you have any questions, yes, absolutely. Okay, cool. All right, Caitlin, I am passing it on to you.
Okay, so we're going to talk about teaching with OLI. Next. So OLI and the HBCUs have had over a decade of collaboration, and that's with both using and researching with our courses such as OLI statistics, biology, and other courses. We have ongoing active participation in the Simon Initiative Learn Lab Summer School in Pittsburgh every summer. We have a bunch of joint research proposals out with the NSF, IES, and BMGF, and we help support the HBCU network as well as other initiatives. Next. Our course catalog has a variety of different courses. These have all been designed to measure learning, just as Alex explained before, and these courses are the courses available to you right now. However, they are not the only courses available to you because you can also write your own. Each course lets you view student learning with the learning dashboard, which we're going to get into next. So one of the coolest things about OLI is our learning dashboard. While you're teaching, the learning dashboard is a tool that helps you get inside student progress against each learning objective. This takes into consideration how many students have participated in each module and how they have performed on each practice question. You can see that this module seems to have a lot of students who understand the first objective very well. You can see a lot of green and a little bit of gray. The green means that they are understanding against the learning objective, and the gray means some students haven't answered it yet. So that first objective is exactly what you might expect to see in a section that's pretty easy for students. However, you can see that the third objective is giving the students a bit more trouble. And I say that because there's just a little bit of green, there's a lot of yellow and a lot of gray. That means the students are not performing as well on practice questions with this third learning objective. So when you get to class, you may talk to students and review the third objective, which is the bones of the axial skeletal system. If you look at the last two objectives, you can see that students have not yet done questions against these objectives since the progress bars are gray. So that just means that we're probably doing the online modules right now and they haven't finished them yet. So there's nothing to worry about. Since this is the case, I probably won't want to talk to my students about this module as I teach it, because the students they're still learning them. So I want to give them a chance to do that practice before I try to course correct or anything else. Overall, this module is pretty much how I would want the module to look. So let's take a look at a less ideal module as I teach. So this is a different module. You can see that there's not very good understanding of any of the learning objectives because there's a lot of red and a lot of yellow. And maybe I want to know more about what is confusing students. So I'm going to click into a given objective. Click. Are you clicking? There should be animation. There we go. Now I can see that students who understand the objective really understand the objective. So I can see that with that second screen, you went one too many. I want to see the one with the bars.
There we go.
Can you go back one?
Yeah, this is all I get.
There you go. So I'm looking at the right side of the screen. I see a lot of dots that are green. They're all in a big row and they're all at 100%. That means the students who get it, get it. Whereas some of the students don't, where it's a little bit more of a spread. Yeah, so there's a spread in the yellow and a spread in the red, and there's a bunch of students who have not taken this objective yet. So you can see that the students who get it, and the students who don't. I want to dig into maybe one of these sub-objectives a little bit more. So I would click on the sub-objectives to view even more data about that student learning. Click.
Is it changing for you guys?
Yeah, now it's changed. So now I'm looking at the different sub-objectives, and I can see each question that's linked to this first sub-objective. I can see that they have 4 chances to practice this learning objective, and I can see the questions that they're practicing. Right now, I'm looking at question number 1, and I can see that it is looking pretty good. It has a lot of, wait, so it's not looking pretty good. It's actually looking a little bit confusing because the people who get it right, but there are a lot of people getting it wrong. And it's because the question is not very well written. It's asking which one is not a major function of the digestive system. And since I use this language in my questions, the students can more easily get confused. So that might be what I want, or that might be what I expect out of a question like this. So I am actually going to leave that alone and take a look at another question. I want to take a look at question number 11. Oh, so sorry. Now I'm looking at a quiz. This quiz is testing those same learning objectives. And I see that the students are doing pretty good. They have an average percentage of 77%, but some questions they're not doing as well on. In particular, question 11 is looking really bad. So I want to go to question 11 and look into it. Click.
Did it come up?
There it is. So I see that in question 11, a few people got the correct answer. A lot of people chose B, and a couple people chose D. As I look at the question itself, it doesn't seem that confusing to me. So what this tells me is that students are having a misconception, especially because there are 14 students who all chose that second option. It means that something is leading them to think that option B is the correct answer. That might be the instruction they received in class. That might be the instruction they received on the OLI modules, but I have to look into that and figure out what's going wrong. I might also just bring it up next time the students come to class. So say they take a quiz on Friday, everyone takes the quiz, and I look at the results and I find this result on Monday when they come back to class, or actually if it's a Friday class, yeah, Monday would probably be the next time I see them. I would go over the results of the quiz and I would ask the students why they thought B was the correct answer and address that misconception in class. So this data that's being provided to me live, as soon as students take the quiz, I can see all this data. I can adjust my teaching to meet the students where they are, as opposed to just guessing what students are thinking. So this is just one scenario. The data can show me a few different scenarios. Can you click?
Yep.
You saw this question earlier when I was pointing out question 1, and I said before that this is kind of a confusing question, and this is showing me something else. When I look at question 1 as an author, as an instructor, I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine. But when I look at it as an author, I think, well, I want to change this question. And that's where these two questions are different. In question 11, I don't want to change the question because it's showing me that students have a misconception. I want to course correct or maybe change the content around the question, but the question itself, I think, is probably fine. With question 1, I might actually want to re-author a question. And if I had a textbook, I couldn't do this. I would just have to go, well, the question is what it is. But since I'm teaching online, I can actually make edits to my course and make the course better. So click advance. We want to talk about creating with OLI. With OLI, we build the tools to build OLI courses. You can also write original courses to teach with, and you can edit courses that already exist from our library. So if you saw that situation we saw before, where it was a bad question, you can actually go in and change the question and customize it to your needs so that it's not confusing to your students. You can also share these throughout the HBCU-UP. Let's say you made your anatomy and physiology class so much better, you can pass it on to other people at the HBCUs so that they can also use this better version of the anatomy and physiology course. And you can do this all through our platforms, which are called OLI Echo, our legacy system, and OLI Taurus, which is the next generation of educational technology. So I shared a Taurus link with you earlier. Taurus is an all-in-one platform where you can design and teach courses online. You can personalize classes to suit your needs, and they're very easy to edit and fix anything that needs to be fixed, such as typos. You can even push these through. Let's say you notice a typo today, you can have it fixed for all your students like in 15 minutes. It's easy to use and assist in your learning engineering research. And just like our legacy platform, you can pull student data from our platform to analyze learning curves and do a lot of these advanced data analyses. If you do the advanced learning curves, you can help determine if students are learning and where they are learning and where they are not learning. And right now, we are currently moving between our old platform and our next generation Taurus. So we have a limited catalog, but it is growing every week. That link that I shared to you earlier was an example of an OLI Taurus course. And we can integrate all of these courses with Canvas and any other LMS tools to share with any other LMS tools, or we can just share links like I did before, and students can access these courses online. We can also do research with OLI.
Yep. All right, so our research is pretty broad reaching. We have research in-house, right? With some of our heads of learning research, we're collaborating with the HCII Institute at CMU all the time. We're getting feedback all the time on both platform and data from PhD students and whatnot. But because OLI is open source, there's absolutely no reason that anyone can't end up doing data collection and research using our platform, especially because it is a huge data collection tool. So if you're ever interested in performing your own research project, whether that be doing before and after testing in different versions of a course, or implementing a brand new course, or just seeing how students are reacting in a traditional modality versus an online learning modality, whatever your research question might be, get in contact with us because we would be more than happy to work on it at your institutions, outside of your institutions, of course, as long as IRB approval permits. I know that every course administered at Carnegie Mellon via OLI Taurus has IRB approval, and students are well aware because Taurus itself or OLI itself is like a big research project as well. So you can administer courses to different sections for multiple samples, right? So let's say you teach the same course to you give maybe one lecture and then you have 3 different subsections of your course, right? Maybe they meet for I guess we would call it lab, depending on what type of course you're teaching, but maybe they meet for a different section lab, right? So you can do multiple samples. You're collecting your learner data, just like Caitlin talked about. We can help with grant proposals, or we can work on grant proposals together. We do publishing in conferences all the time. Upcoming, for example, myself and a collaborator at CMU are just proposing we just submitted a bunch of conference proposals for a course we built about alcohol and substance use education. So that's a new innovation in the field, how we're using the learning sciences to really innovate on the idea of like substance use, domestic violence prevention education, substance use education for students, which is pretty mandatory. And so we're doing stuff like that. And then, Caitlin, if you could find it, we have a bibliography of tons of papers that we've published through OLI or with OLI collaborators and talking about OLI principles. If you wanted to learn more about learning science pedagogy, using OLI in the classroom, and so much more. So Cold Rolled Steel is on there, of course. But if you're really interested in getting into the nitty-gritty of learning science, papers, a lot of them are there, and a lot of them have links to the papers themselves. So like I said, if you at any point are interested in either running your own research or collaborating with us on research, there are plenty of avenues to do it. And since OLI collects data, it is a perfect tool in order to get that about your students. All right. And yeah, getting involved with OLI, you can teach with any of the courses from our catalog or any of the courses found in the HBCU-UP. For those who attend LearnLab Summer School in Pittsburgh, we can't wait to have you back. And hopefully, if you're on the call and you're interested in learning more about this, feel free to attend. Caitlin and I work pretty closely and intensely on the OLI track at LearnLab Summer School. Feel free to attend any of our Taurus community meetings. These are meetings that basically discuss what kind of developments you want to see on our end, right? What are your wants and your needs, whether that be the general platform. And now we have two running. Caitlin, I believe, runs the statistics community meeting, which she can tell you more about if we wish. We have a chemistry one as well. And you can work with our learning engineers, so folks like Caitlin and myself and other amazing members of our team to analyze your class data. And yeah, Caitlin, do you have any extras on these opportunities? So
No, all that I have to say is these are the opportunities that are open right now.
Yeah. All right. And then how much time do we have? And do we have the ability to do the course demo, or should we go right to questions?
We should go into questions, I think.
Okay.
You still have 30, actually 40 minutes. So you're
Okay. So let's do a demo.
For sure. All right. I will stop sharing, and then Caitlin, feel free to.
Before we do the demo, I do actually need some data. So if people can go into our demo course and do a couple pages, that would be great. And as you do these pages, let's set a 5-minute timer. You don't have to put the correct answers, but let's set a timer. You can ask questions, or you can just work on these data so that we can see what it looks like in our new platform.
While you all are answering those questions, I wanted to first and foremost thank Caitlin and Aleks for that amazing presentation.
Dr. Hayward, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Dr. Hayward, we all can hear you.
Okay, good. Right. So as I was saying, I wanted to thank Caitlin and Aleks for their wonderful presentation, and obviously they're still showing us more about OLI. But I also want to thank them for kind of giving a preface to the network, right? So you heard a lot about what they do, and one of the first things I want to talk about is, if you notice, the data that you're getting is almost real time. So you can give these different activities to your students, and you can get this feedback almost immediately. So you're not talking about waiting until after the exam or the end of the semester. You're getting this feedback almost real time, and you can address it in your courses right there, right? And that's one of the things that I think we're trying to work towards as educators, to be able to get that feedback much faster so that we can help our students better learn the material that we want them to learn. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Second thing, everything that they're talking about is essentially exactly what the network is for, right? So we are trying to get HBCU faculty to join so that we can author our own tools to put in this platform, right? So we can give to our students, so we can see feedback on our courses, the material that we're teaching, but also share it within this network of other HBCU faculty, right? And research is huge, right? You can do just all types of opportunities for research here with that data. So thank you all for giving that. You said it better than I could, so thank you.
And thank you for working with us.
And I think the thank you goes to you all for working with us.
I'm going to give you another 2 minutes or so to go through that course. I really like the Meeting You course because it is not what you normally think of when you think of online education. You might think of taking a math course online and having these multiple choice questions, but Meeting You is a very good use case of teaching students something that is hard to teach online, how to run a meeting, how to go through and treat other people with respect. So you can see that we can hit a variety of different topics with these online courses. Shouldn't be slow. The course is loading slowly for me, trying to do it as a guest. Okay. Thanks, Angel. Okay, so now we have some data. I'm going to share my screen. And right here, we are going to go into the course, and this is what it looks like as an instructor. So you can see there's a lot of just settings when you first log in, but what matters to me is not the settings really, it's the insights. So when I want to look a little bit more into my data, I can see the insights by units, I can see them by modules, learning objective, activity, practice objectives, and surveys. So this course has a lot of practice activities. I'm going to take a closer look at the practice activities, and I can see that there's been progress across a good amount of the course. For the most part, it's been in that introduction, but I can also see some in the second page. So if I click on the introduction, I can see that there was no attempt registered for that question. So something went wrong. Oh, it's loading. This takes a little while to load as the data is live. So I click into one of my activities and I wait for the page to load. And this will give me a breakdown of what students answered on each question. And we're just waiting.
If you need one, I can always also do save for Scotty's.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen. I
Yeah.
don't want to do Safe for Scotty's because that has real data in it. I want to do
Oh, true, yeah.
a different demo course. Let me just. So the course I'm going to show you is a course that a master's student is currently writing. And they used a platform called Prolific to do some research. What they did was they created an A/B test. Actually, it's an ABCD test. They had 4 different conditions, and then they put it up on the internet, and they said, okay, people on the internet will pay you 50 cents if you take this course, or something like that. And it's really amazing because with Prolific, they're able to get 100 people taking their course in less than a day. Of course, you have to pay for this research. All research is paid, but you can really do rapid cycles of research using our platform with this tool. Another great part about it is it's anonymous. So the reason I didn't want to share Alex's course is because it's not anonymous. You can see all the student names, but the students who took this course, it just says anonymous and you don't see who answered what, which is really great for research purposes. So right here, they had a question and it's not loading. Never mind then, I won't be showing you this. But they had different activities, and you should be able to see a breakdown of what those activities do. I am going to just send you pictures in the chat instead, because I have pictures that I took screenshots of yesterday when it was working. Let me send this to the chat. So I just sent a picture to the chat, and you can see they had 2 questions, and they could respond yes or no to the question. You would see how many people responded, and what you can also click around to see what the answer is. Basically, all those things that I was showing you with our old system are now on our new system as well. Okay, that was my failed demo. Never do things live, always use screenshots is what I learned today. I guess we'll open the floor to questions.
I will take that as a job well done.
Caitlin, just a brief question also. Can you explain a little bit about the actual the grade book per se? So once the students have completed the assignments, what the actual grade book could, because we do have a grade book and we are able to take modules out and things like that. Could we explain a little bit about that for you know, as far as a professor resource?
So as a professor resource, you're able to see what students completed what units, and you're able to pass back a completion percentage. You're also able to pass back scores on quizzes, which are auto-graded. If you have questions in there that you want to manually grade, say you want them to upload an essay, then those scores won't be auto-populated. You have to enter those into our system before you can get that grade book passed back with OLI.
Awesome, thank you. Because I use it on a regular basis. So also another easy way for me is actually you can export it into an Excel document. And the Excel document has all of the grading on there. So it's just an easy import until we can actually integrate it into Canvas.
So we can, so the question in the chat is, they haven't had a ton of time to review all the individual items in OLI. Yeah, you're a professor, that makes sense. Is there a way the system can flag troublesome questions and put them into a queue for instructors to look at quickly and address? Right now, our system is still being built for Taurus. So in OLI Taurus, we do not have any flagging for the most problematic questions. But in our legacy system, which I believe you are still on, it has those visual cues, which are just, you can see how many people got it correct or incorrect, and that would be the main way to flag those questions.
That's an excellent feature request, which brings up just a supplementary point that if you are, you know, if we're slowly transitioning, a lot of folks are slowly transitioning to out of legacy into Taurus as Taurus is being built. It makes tons of progress all the time. But as it's being built, we're always collecting feature ideas, feature requests, right? Designing those, working with our user experience designers, our UX designers. So for example, that would be a great tool to suggest that we do more research into when we're trying to build it, right? Can we have an audit system that flags problematic questions and puts them to a top of a queue, right, in the Taurus system? So all that to say, if you have ideas from everything you've seen, or there's a feature you would really like based on your personal experience as an instructor, there is an avenue for suggesting those, and we take those and we research them, and we research them into building them. So we're always welcoming folks' ideas. We're always welcoming needs and feature ideas and things like that. Whether or not some of them become feasible is another story, as Caitlin and I are not. We don't design software, but our dev team does. So we love passing on your suggestions or your ideas onto our product team and our designer team. So if you have anything like that, Caitlin, do you want to maybe put the
I mean, that's the second time I've gotten that request this week. It's a very big request, and the more people we have asking for it, the better.
right. So if you have a group of instructors and all 5 of you want something, all 5 of you should submit a request so that, we're like,
Separately, by
yeah,
the way, not together.
not
Separate
together,
requests,
separately,
'cause they do
everybody.
count. That is one of the biggest metrics we use, is just how many people are asking.
Right. So again, if you and 5 other folks go, oh, I wish this was really a thing, each one of you should submit a request. And that way we know, oh, there's at least 5 people asking for it, if not more. So let's see. I'm gonna try and find the feature request. I see in the chat, we'll do this today. Absolutely. Let me try. Caitlin, if you could find in the chat,
It'd be a great request. I haven't gotten
yeah.
that one.
Let's
But
see.
well, I'm into troublesome questions. Literally, I got that question on Monday. It's like, please, we really need this.
Where's our suggestion? It's in Jira, right?
Yeah, it's in Jira.
In create feature request.
Yeah.
Here, let me paste this. Just make sure that this goes through, Caitlin. We can even do a short demo of how to submit a Taurus feature request if we have the
Just a note, this is for Taurus. Dr. Davis, I know, is still on our legacy platform because I
Yeah.
have not moved his course yet. I did try once. It didn't work the first time, but it's in our list of courses to migrate.
And that's Caitlin manually migrating or like managing all manual migration from the old system to the new system. So big props. But yeah, this is for building out our new system. So all of your feedback could be instrumental in getting that done. So real quick, I'll share my screen, just walk it through real quick. It's always a benefit. Oh, come on. There we go. All right. So for example, this is just a Jira. This is the link. You would go up here, hit create. No need to change anything, but yeah, feature request, and then you can put in basically anything that you have an idea for, or you can email Caitlin or myself and we'll pass it on, right? So if 5 of you, again, want a problematic question queue or problematic question dashboard, you can put it in, describe it. Don't worry about any of these things. We get that taken care of, right? Just put your name, maybe where you're from, hit create, and we will get all of that in, and our product team can see just how many folks are asking for a feature. So who knows, it might even come up in one of the next planning cycles, if enough people ask for it and they deem it as high priority. So there's that. Any other questions in terms of either building a course, Taurus, legacy, anything of the sort, working with OLI, Learn Lab? Right. Cool.
And once again, if you are interested in going to Learn Lab with us, the HBCU Science and Learning Network goes every year, and we usually take a number of faculty with us. We pay for the whole thing. Well, Caitlin, Aleks, thank you all so much for your time, for your energy. Thank you so much for this presentation. If you know someone who was interested in attending and was not able to do so, we have recorded this. It will be on the Science and Learning Network page so that you can watch it later, or you can share it with those other faculty members. We are always interested in your participation. This is a lecture series that is continuing. The series will happen usually monthly throughout the semester. We have various professionals that come in and give talks about the science of learning and various features that you can use in your courses and development of educational tools, and also keeping you abreast of where the science of learning is now. So we thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for your time. And we will see what Dr. Butts wants to say anything before we leave.
I just wanted to say thank you all again. I think this was so important because we always talk about the online learning, initiative, and we always give, a brief summary, but I think this was very, very important, just for our faculty and specifically the people that we asked to use it, and they do utilize it. So this was really, really awesome, for them to see the background and the building and what they can do with it. So we absolutely appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, so if there's no further questions, we will let you all go. And
Right.
thank everyone again for participating.
Thank you all.